Good morning. Let's get the music down. Let's cool down this music. Here we are. Oh, I'm feeling good, people. I am feeling good. Oh, let's get the technology in the right position. Oh, here we are. And how are you all feeling this fine morning? How are you all feeling? I'm feeling good. I've exercised. I've raised my heart rate. I'm feeling fantastic. I hope you are. God, this is going to be a fantastic show this morning. A fantastic show this morning. So this is the Motivators Show, and we'll be alongside Empress Abner. But more importantly, this is where we translate our words into action. And more importantly, where success is ours for the taking. And that's absolutely true, everyone. Success is ours for the taking. So before I begin, I want to give praise and all the respect to Giant King, who's taken us via the Galaxy Afui network from night to day. And if you haven't listened to galaxyafui.net, please do. A fantastic station to listen to. Well, of course, those of you who are viewing and listening to us via YouTube and Facebook, thank you. Thank you for taking the trouble to listen to us via those two platforms. Of course, those of you who listen to us via Mixcloud, thank you for listening to us via Mixcloud under, of course, the Motivator Show. And remember, what we always appreciate, and let me just put it on the screen now, what we always appreciate, yes, why don't you subscribe or press the like key? That's the thumbs up. If I can get it in there. There you are, the thumbs up key, yeah, in Facebook and YouTube. Please do that. That's an affirmation. I repeat, an affirmation that we are doing the right thing. The information content we're supplying meets with your satisfaction. That's the affirmation. If you're viewing us and listening to us via Facebook and YouTube, don't forget, subscribe, follow, like. That's the affirmation we need. And we'll continue producing these shows. Thank you. Thank you. But more importantly, the purpose of these shows, of course, are to stimulate discussion, yeah, raise the confidence levels amongst the communities, of course, and motivate you into action. This is not a passive listening exercise, yeah. This is an exercise in doing, getting things done. This is not an exercise in moaning about the past and the present and all the ills. It's about looking for solutions, strategies to build. That's the purpose of these shows. These are African Caribbean, continental African empowerment shows. That's the purpose of doing these shows. If you're uncertain, always ask. If you're uncertain, ask. Ring the show. Just ask for clarification. Ask for clarification. But today's show will continue the themes of the past two shows, of course. That's on that wonderful, great Nigeria. Okay. We have the election, the presidential elections. I'm now told that the election for governors has been postponed. And maybe for good reason. And reasons will come out in this show today. Maybe for good reason. So what I'm going to say to you all is this. This is not passive listening. This is what I'm doing. We will do today will translate these words into action, because success is ours for the taking. So without further ado, let me go into the first segment of the show, which of course are the essential, the crucial health messages. I started the health messages some years ago on the premise that as an elected official, as I am, as an elected official, I had a duty, a public duty, to communicate essential information to members of particularly my own community. And information that relates to health is more important than any other piece of communication I might relay today. Because the old saying goes, your health is indeed your wealth. And in our communities, we have unusually high levels of certain conditions, which are fundamentally high lifestyle conditions. In other words, it's in our control to change, to make better, to improve. We must do so. I repeat, we must do so for our sakes, our family's sakes, our loved ones' sakes, our friends' sake, indeed our community's sake, the nation's sake. We must do better in relation to our health. So I'll spend just a few minutes communicating these health messages, and you would appreciate, particularly those who are new listeners, new viewers, you would appreciate what I'm about to say. I ask you please to consider how much sugar and salt you consume every day. I say this to you, and I say this to you with as compassionately and with as much empathy as I can. I completely understand that many of us add additional sugar and salt to our diet out of habit. I accept that. But I ask you to consider the amount of sugar and salt that we add to our diets. Do you need to add additional sugar to your teas and coffees, or drink those additional soft drinks, so-called fizzy drinks in a tin or bottle? Do we need to eat the amount of cakes and other sweet items that we do? And equally, do we need to add salt to our diet? Do we need to add it every day to our diet? Let's think about the effects. And the typical effects of adding additional sugar and salt to our diets is that our bodies become, numb to these ingredients and no longer process these additional ingredients to the extent they require. And a typical condition, and many of you will now relate to this, are diabetes and hypertension, the typical two conditions, public health conditions that have a significant impact on our lives. The levels of diabetes in the African communities, whether you're from the continent, the Caribbean, or the Americas, in our communities, is way above national or international levels. There are far too members of our community dying because of diabetes. Far too many. And it is avoidable. The excess consumption of sugar is killing our community. I also ask you to consider, of course, the amount of salt that you're consuming. Result often in the hardening of our arteries, the raising of our blood pressure, and indeed causing hypertension in the community. And many of you will know that if you have diabetes or hypertension or high blood pressure, that these are conditions for which there isn't a cure. You can manage the conditions, but there isn't a known cure. And it's typically caused by lifestyle, typically caused by excess consumption of sugar and salt. Not the only reason, I might add, but it's the primary reason. So I ask you, please, to consider the amount of sugar and salt that you're consuming. Excess consumption of these two chemicals, or sucrose or sodium, you'll see it in the ingredients, are having an adverse impact on our community. And I implore you to consider carefully, do you really need to add these ingredients to your diet in view of the long-term health impacts that they have? I pause there because I know that there are many of you who are now considering. You're looking at how many of your members of your family are suffering from these conditions, okay? And the knock-on effect it might be having on yourselves and your family, okay? And I realize I may be raising some person's concerns, and I say to you, and I implore you, please don't be concerned. Go see your doctors. Have your sugar levels tested. Have your blood pressure tested to put your mind at rest. But in our community, there's abnormally high levels of diabetes, abnormally high levels of hypertension or high blood pressure. So I urge you, please, to consider your actions. Go to the doctor if in doubt. I am not an expert, but I've been advised by experts as to the levels and the implications for the community. I equally ask you to consider the amount of, I know this is going to get many of you, carbohydrates and starch and fat in your diet. I know, because they're pretty basic items, I know, but listen carefully. Carbohydrates typically derived from wheat-based products, okay? Typically derived from wheat-based products, you know? I heard you. Because we eat wheat every day. I hear you. Starch is the other one. Typically derived from, I know you're going to laugh, from rice. The excess consumption of rice. I know, I hear you. Particularly if you're from West Africa, many parts of Africa, the consumption of carbohydrates and starch is typical. You know, either from root products such as potatoes or yams, or indeed from our other part of our cuisine, that is the jollof rice, the Ghanaians and the Nigerians. I can hear you now. And from the Caribbean, the rice and peas or the rice-based menus. Yeah, eaten every day to excess. Yeah, carbohydrate and starch, particularly from the rice. We build it up in our bodies. Yeah, what's the effect? Huh? What's the effect? I'm going to come on that in a second. Okay, fat. Primarily derived from animal products, the excess consumption of animal products. Okay, let's consider this. from the root vegetables, yeah, yams, primarily carbohydrates, yeah, and starch. Rice, primarily starch. Fat, primarily from animal products. Eating meat in excess or dairy products, yeah, the cheese, yeah, the butter, the margarines, and all this. Yeah? These are just fats, just another form of fat. But the excess consumption is a challenge for our bodies. Because the bodies have to convert it into usable materials so we can build our bodies. But how many of you right now are overweight? It's because the excess consumption of just those three items, yeah? Carbohydrates, fat, starch. It's bloating your bodies, our bodies, bloating our bodies. Large shoulders, large abdomen, thick thighs. Note the word thick thighs, and large buttocks or bottoms in the other places, huh? Those are usually characteristics of it. Yes, there's a genetic component without a shadow of a doubt, but most certainly it's a result of lifestyle. The excessive consumption of those three ingredients in our cuisines. Often the doctors are recommending moderation in the amount of food that we consume on a daily basis. No more than a fistful per meal is what I'm advised. And I've been slowly getting myself to a fistful of nutrients per meal. Yeah? Got to train yourself, the mentality. Do we need to have these large bowls of milk? Often our bodies don't need it. Therefore, we don't need it. Because what our bodies do, therefore, is to store, yeah, store it, yeah, for an emergency that never comes. So you carry the excess weight, extra burden in your body around with you every day. So the knock-on effect is the diabetes, hypertension, yeah, hardened arteries, raised blood pressure. Many of the heart conditions are directly related to our lifestyle. Much of the cancers are directly related to our lifestyle. Yeah? Much of the respiratory conditions are directly related to our lifestyle. Because the doctors and nutritionists universally recommend that we should eat far more fruits and vegetables. When I say fruits and vegetables, I want to emphasize, let me emphasize, the fruits and the vegetables, the green vegetables in particular, a broad range of vegetables, most certainly, okay? From which our bodies can build, produce blood, actual blood, a broad range of nutrients contained in far more consumption of fruits and vegetables, particularly green vegetables, but a broad range of vegetables. They recommend, without a shadow of a doubt, consuming appropriate amount of water every day, between 2 to 3 liters of water every day. And I've got my water here. Yeah, I have my water here. Yeah, I keep it handy. 2 to 3 liters of water. In my case, yes, I have plain water. I occasionally put a bit of lemon in mine, a bit of ginger, yeah, just for additional flavoring, yeah, anti-inflammatory, nutritious, yeah. There you are. That's what I do. Between 2 to 3 liters of water per day. But again, depending upon your height and mass, okay, it might vary for you. Okay, speak to your doctor, speak to a nutritionist. They will give you the professional advice. Mine is but general advice. But absolutely crucial to all of this. Now you're eating the right food in the right balance, and now you've consuming the right amount of water each day. It's vital, and I repeat, It is vital that you exercise. Exercise is mission critical. You've got to exercise. Far too many members of my community, whether you're in the continent of Africa or the Caribbean, the Americas, or here in Europe or Britain, do not exercise. Yeah? So you become bloated, your muscles become weak. Yeah? Your immune response to viruses and bacteria diminishes. And so you become vulnerable. Exercise is vital to your general health and well-being. I repeat, exercise is vital to your general health and well-being. And if in doubt, I say to you all, please, if in doubt, speak to your doctor, speak to a health professional. If in doubt about anything I've said today, if you're in doubt about any aspect of what I've described today, I urge you, please speak to a professional, a doctor, a nutritionist, whoever has access to your medical records, if in doubt. But exercise is an absolutely vital ingredient to your general health and well-being. Not only have I run, I've exercised. Look, I've got my weights here. I love my weights. Here you are. I have my weights here. I want to show off my weights. Yeah. I do this and I push up. I made sure you can see me flushing already, can you? Yeah, that's what you've got to do. Oh, get it up there. Get it up there. Yeah. Exercise. I do this every day to raise my heart, to increase my overall health and well-being. It's for goodness. It's for wellness. Yeah. If you're eating right, drinking an appropriate amount of water, but don't exercise, then that's, well, could be considered useless. Because your body is genetically programmed to be worked, yeah, to be stretched, to be pulled, yeah. You are genetically programmed for your body to be worked, to be stretched, to be pulled, yeah. So you can raise your heart rate, yeah. You can sweat a little bit, you know. That's what's intended for exercise. Good exercise should yield those responses. Again, if in doubt, I say to everybody, if in doubt, seek professional advice. I gain no financial benefit from you in giving you this advice. Me, I'm just an African man. Yeah, that's what I am. That's what I am. Nothing else. Just an ordinary African. That's all. But I have a conscience, and it would be really beneath myself not to share what I know. It would be beneath me not to share what I know. So I consider this to be the most vital part of any show I commit to, these health messages, to encourage the community, yeah, to exercise, to encourage the community to drink the appropriate amount of water, to encourage the community, of course, to eat a balanced diet. And in doing so, you love yourself, you love and express your love to your loved ones, to your friends, your associates, to your community. Yeah? And particularly if you are a parent, it's so important you demonstrate for your children the best way to live their lives from a health perspective. Yeah, so vitally important. And if you know, and I've got to say to many of those who hold leadership in the community, you yourselves, I've got to communicate these health messages. You yourself have got to be the example. You yourself must demonstrate how it's possible to live a healthy lifestyle. All right, okay. I think I've said enough for the moment, but I hope these messages see you well. I hope they do. Because all of that is a vital part of who we are as a community. You know, I've focused on, of course, on the physical conditions, of course, but don't forget, you must take care of your mental and spiritual health. Okay, I meditate personally. Okay, as a means to settling my mind, providing focus. Okay, I meditate. Okay, and of course, my spiritual health is well accounted for. But it's vital, though, absolutely vital, that each of you think about this for yourselves. Think about what these messages for yourselves and for those you love, or respect, or indeed worship. That's what I mean at the beginning of the show, because this is where we translate our words into action, and where success is ours for the taking through our very action. Oh, yeah. Yes. 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 Oh, anyway, now I feel much better. I feel much better. Now let's move on to the next part of our show. So I now turn our attention to the great country of Nigeria, okay, who's just had those presidential elections. And the theme for today's show, and I actually lament this theme, but it is a necessary discussion point. Because I've had many, many conversations since our show last Saturday. And the questions that posed to me repeatedly: did Chief Peter Obi, did he win? Did he win? I was asked that opinion, and I'm not in Nigeria. So I started to research, to look again at the evidence. And I have to say, there is evidence which is very, very concerning. There is evidence which is very, very concerning. Evidence that if this was happening here in Britain, where I'm based, here in London, okay, I most certainly will be asking for an inquiry, calling for an inquiry, an investigation into the conduct of the last presidential elections. I definitely would. Okay, I know that Chief Peter Obi of the Labour Party of Nigeria has started a legal process, and so they should. And so they should. The Labour Party of Nigeria, which has this wonderful logo, forward ever, absolutely, forward. They're not going to allow the past to hold them back, because they're going to build a better future. I'm a member of the Labour Party here in Britain. I'm a Labour councillor. So I relate to building a better country, a more equal and just country, a country in which values all persons, not just some people, where there's access to good education and healthcare, good opportunity for each of us to realize our personal potential or ambitions, if you like. Okay. And I read through the Nigerian Labour Party's manifesto constitutions, its reason for being. And I've got to say, I was most impressed. I'm most impressed. And without a shadow of a doubt, I was convinced that it is absolutely vital for us to think carefully about the future and what we do as a community to build, I'm sorry, to build a better future. Okay, we've got to consider what we do to build a better future. So, as part of my research, I've studied, I'd reason to study the past speeches given by Chief Peter Obi. I became increasingly impressed by the quality division contained in those speeches. Okay. And I noted, oh yeah, I noted his first action following the presidential election, in which he came third, I might add. Okay. Yeah. Was to say to the people, we will contest, we will indeed seek an inquiry, go through the courts. But above all, there must be peace in Nigeria. Above all, there must be peace in Nigeria. In fact, don't listen to me. I want you all to listen to the great man's words. I want you to listen to his words. Okay? His first interview following the presidential election. I've got it here. And before I begin, I want to give a big shout out to the channel that I found to be the most interesting channel of many of the Nigerian TV channels, and that is the Channels TV, for their professionalism. And if you haven't subscribed to the Channel TV YouTube channel, I urge you to do so. Subscribe, or give them the likes, as well. Brilliant channels, television. Okay, but I want you to listen to the words of Chief Peter Obi. Okay, listen to his words. I'm going to set it up now. Let's see if I can set it up without any problem. I want to set it up. I want you to listen to his words, and after that, I'm going to ask you, maybe members of his campaign team. We never know. We might even be able to gain the great man's presence here today, but most certainly hope his campaign team are listening. I want you to listen to his words, okay? And listen to the majesty of his words. Okay, let me set it up. Here we go.
When they trusted. However, let me humbly and most respectfully appeal to all Nigerians to remain peaceful, law-abiding, and conduct themselves in most responsible manner. Please be assured that Daddy and I, and indeed all of us, this is not the end, but the beginning of the journey for a better of New Nigeria. Daddy Baba Ahmed and I remain absolutely undaunted and deeply committed to the project of a new Nigeria that will be built on honesty, transparency, fairness, justice, equity. All the above starts with the process. The process through which people come into office is far more fundamental, more important than what they do thereafter. It is my belief, and I've maintained so consistently, that if you must answer His Excellency, the process through which you arrive to office must be excellent. We must now require that we do the right things in order to generate the required confidence and moral authority to lead. As you know, the destruction of a society begins and gradually progress when we act rascally or with deliberate manipulation of the rule of law and suppression of the will of the people. During my campaign process, I said that we will govern by the rule of law, because we know what not doing that will bring about. And that's why we insisted that. Let me reiterate, and I assure you that good people of Nigeria, that we will explore all legal and peaceful options to reclaim our mandates. We won the election, and we will prove it to Nigerians. Oh, yeah. Please do not despair. We have elections coming up on the 11th. I enjoin you to go out, campaign, and bring out people to again come out and vote in that election. We still have so many massive support out there that we need for our sub-national and state assemblies. Please come out and be part of that election. I assure you that I will be part of it. I assure you that I'm totally committed for a better future in this country. And nothing will stop that. That is commitment. My commitment is total. Be rest assured that your support will not be in vain. And you will not find us wanting. We must build a better Nigeria, where Nigerian youths will be happy, glad to call their own country. Thank you, and may God Almighty continue to bless the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
And thank you very much. So, colleagues, if you don't take anything home in what we just heard, he said we won the election and we will prove it to the world. We will reclaim that mandate. Another round of applause for him. Okay, so we will take a few questions from journalists who are. So if you raise your hands, I'll recognize you. You come out here and speak. Okay. Oh, all right.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sean. I'm a reporter with Channels Television. I'd like to ask you, it does look, I have two questions, and they're quick ones. You said that you're going to reclaim, and you said you won the election. If you'd like to expatiate on what you meant by that, in what areas do you think, because your speech does look to me like the elections is flawed as far as you're concerned. What are the evidence that you have to support the claim about the conduct of the election? And if you can tell us which areas, what are the aspects of the elections you think that are not right? The second part of the question is the journey since Saturday election. You seem to have formed an alliance with other political parties like the PDP. Are you doing this challenge on the election or the outcome of the election alongside with them? How much of partnership do you have with the PDP? Have you spoken to the candidate of the PDP? What kind of alliance are you forming? Again, because of the sensitivity of the outcome, the nation went into a very crucial and tense election, came out of it, things, the nation is still very tense. And also, we discovered that the nation at this time needs to come together. What kind of words are you going to send out to your supporters and your followers in respect to the fact that we must have a nation first, and then we must be able to keep the nation together? And lastly, have you spoken? Have you spoken? Have you reached out to the man that has been declared winner?
Well, you did ask me the process and the areas. If I tell you all this, I don't know what I'll be telling the court. We have passed the stage of that because we were asked to go to the court. Isn't that what I said? So let's go there. Remember that I'm obedient. I want to tell you, I'm going to go where I'm directed to go. So, and then you will see where and how. Or just to give you an emphasis, in 2015, the number of registered voters, if I can remember, is about, what was it again? About 67 million registered voters and 29.4 voted. In 2019, that tally increased to about 84 million. And about 28.4 million voted. And then we were told that about 11 million registered in 2022, if I'm correct, which brought the registration to about 95, but 87 collected their PVC because of the issue of not being able to collect their PVC. But only 23.3 million voted. You can see how Nigeria works. So we have an increase of 11 million. And the voters dropped sharply by over 20% instead of increasing. The reason it was due to manipulation and reduction and removal and inputs of votes here and there. Because otherwise the number is supposed to have increased. It didn't increase. Because people were busy doing what is wrong. And we have chosen, I will challenge this rascality for the future of the country. Nigeria cannot conduct elections after independence. It's something everybody should reflect on. Unexamined life is not worth living. And we can't go on like this.
Yes, I thought I'd leave at that point, because clearly those were profound words that Nigeria cannot continue like this. Let me just bring up my screen properly. Here we go. Bring up the screen. There we go. All righty. So there it is. He's called for peace, but made it clear that he will use, the party, I should say, will use all its power to, through the judiciary system, to challenge the conduct of that election. And the body of critical importance here, of course, is INEC, yeah, independent commission, the election commission there. I'm not going to call the chairman's name and others for the moment, but what I'm going to do is stimulate debate, stimulate discussion. all Black people, African peoples across the world are looking to Nigeria, the largest democracy in the motherland of Africa, a country that is swimming on oil, a young country. More than 70% of its population are below the age of 35. It's a country with incredible potential. Nigerians, wherever they are in the world, are always in the upper echelons of academia, science, and technology. In my own political ward, we're dominated by great Nigerians. Yes, I'm going to call you great Nigerians. Okay? So I know Nigeria can do better. So what I've been able to do this week, following my research, and there's much of the research I want to share with you, but before I do this, I want to encourage those of you who are listening to take note of the number, and then I'll go to my guest in a moment. Okay, take note of the number to call later on when I open the phone lines. And I don't want to call it now, please, but I do want you to take note of it. The phone lines will become very busy very quickly. Okay? And the number that I'll ask you to call, and I'll put up on the bottom of my screen, will be, and if you're in the UK, it's 0208 133 5616. I repeat, if you're in the UK, it's 0208 133 5616. If you're overseas, of course, you take off the first zero as +44. If you are one of those who receive our WhatsApp messages, okay, you are able now to call directly through the number that you received your WhatsApp message on directly into the studio. But I do not want you to call these numbers just yet. But I want to take my guest. My guest is a member of Peter Obi's campaign team. Okay, and what I'm going to do now is just first of all bring my guest into the studio, and then we can introduce my guest. Oh, there you are. I think we've got it there. Have I got you, Professor? Are you hearing us well?
Yes, I hear you very clearly.
Very good. I've referred to you as Professor. Okay, but I know there are children listening. You see, children who often do not have the opportunity to hear from professors, those who teach and educate the community in first hand. So I'm going to introduce you, if I may, Professor Utumi. Welcome to my show today. We call it the Motivator Show, where we translate words into action and where we are aware that success is ours for the taking. Welcome. How are you this fine morning?
I am thankful. I'm very, very thankful, and the privilege of joining many guests is one that I do not take for granted here.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm going to ask you, please, if I may refer to you as can I say Patrick or Pat? What would you prefer?
People say Pat.
Pat, I was told this, yes, I was told this. But anyway, it's all right. My brother, you see, is the same name, which is why it's okay. I can ask you, please, to introduce yourself and just describe your connection with Chief Peter Obi's campaign for presidential elections.
Well, this Pat who told me I have spent the better part of a lifetime commitment to building a Nigeria that works for all, and Nigeria lives up to the dream of its founding fathers, and Nigeria that makes the on the planet. And this has put me in the last 50 years as an undergraduate at the University of Nigeria. in 1973
Mhm.
for social justice that culminated in what we call the Students' Democratic Society from the student movement in Europe in the 60s. And through this period, I have been involved in civil society, involved in academia. I've got degrees in, so I act sometimes in the role that you play right now. Degree also in mass communication, and I've hosted a TV show on Nigerian television for 23 years. I have also had my stint. I served as um, an advisor in the government of a president way back in 1983, just shortly after I returned from graduate study. I have served in industry, regional officer, executive in manufacturing. I have where I was one of the founding faculty of the Lagos Business School. Have generally been an engaged citizen. So this brought me to a point where a couple of years ago, I became clear in my mind that Nigeria could not make progress with parties of the time because of the nature of the transactions that were involved in through those opaque processes of those parties. It clear to me that the trade-offs and trading that had to be were such that politics was reduced to producing a government for politicians by politicians rather than the traditional Lincoln of government of the people for the people by the people.
Mhm.
Columns about that in newspapers. Actually, at the point in my career, I was writing 3 columns in
Right.
3 different newspapers on different subject matters in Nigeria. One was in a newspaper called The Vanguard. It was called Thinking Aloud. Another was in The Guardian. And the third one was in the Business Concord on the economy. At the time, I was deputy chief executive of Volkswagen in Nigeria. I wrote those 3
Yes.
columns simultaneously. So it's been a very busy life. And the process of that being busy, I led civil society action that literally forced the end of military rule. I helped found what was known as the Concerned Professionals, which was a grouping of professionals opposed to the annulment of the elections of 1993. And we went to the streets. We took full pages of newspapers to criticize the structure and nature of our. Oh
Yes,
dear. Oh,
yes, you are. Yes, the signal is a little uncertain. We can hear you. We could hear you, but your screen has gone blank. Professor, are you still with us? Professor, are you still with us? All right, I think we may have lost him for a moment. I happen to know that the Professor Patrick Utomi is actually in London, so we shouldn't have this problem, but there you go. It is, let's see if he returns to us. He was setting out his background, and we will then get on to a specific role in the Chief Peter Obi's campaign team. The signal has degraded with him for the moment, but this was going to be a first for the UK to have a member of the Chief Peter Obi's team speak to Nigerians here in London. Right, I can see the signal has not improved. and I think I may have to try another method to communicate with the professor. And let me see, I'll take him out of my stream. I'm going to ask the professor to reconnect with the studio, and we can continue our live stream with him. As he was saying, and if I may extend it, of course, and what I said a moment ago, that we want Nigerians to proceed peacefully. Yeah, we want Nigeria to proceed peacefully. We want Nigeria to govern itself with respect for all Nigerians, not just some. Yeah, we want to achieve economic revitalization of Nigeria, and that renewal, as it were, should benefit the majority and not simply the minority. My research has led me to believe that there is significant opportunities in Nigeria, investment opportunities in Nigeria. Mm-hmm. If there's anywhere in West Africa to invest, Nigeria is absolutely the place to invest. Okay. Remember, as part of this program, whenever you receive the notifications, we call it the de-brainwashing programs. Yeah, GalaxyFreeway.net, a de-brainwashing station. Okay, the founder, Chipa Kambabai, yeah, a de-brainwasher. Nigeria is an excellent place to invest. Okay, I say again, Nigeria is an excellent place to invest, which is why we must get the politics right. Yeah, Nigeria is swimming in oil. I say again, Nigeria is swimming in oil. Mm-hmm. It is a country with an abundance of natural wealth, an abundance of it. Yeah. Yes, we will lament that the inconsistent electricity and so on. Yeah, we will lament. Let me bring the professor back into the studio. Here we go. Professor,
well,
you're back. Yes.
Thank you very much. I think so many calls we're trying to get through, and I was trying to get rid of them, and in the process, something.
Thank you. Okay. Can I ask you, Professor?
Right. I was just
yes,
coming to a head about how P2B projects as it is. Mm-hmm. So, in fact, major national political parties were so structured that Nigeria to making progress. Mm-hmm. And I do not say this lightly. I do not say this aside that. I say this as one who was at the table when both the PDP founded. Mm-hmm. I was saying that with professionals against military rule. Mm-hmm. And at the time that to leave office, my group had to make going forward. And the general outcome was that we said, okay, let's not go into politics. Some wanted us to go into politics and show it to look like in all the press things that we had put out. Some who said we don't agree with you went into politics. Yeah. Who became governor of Cross River State. Mm-hmm. A gentleman called Waziri Mohammed, who plane crash a couple of years afterwards. The rest of us went back to our business executive in industry and manufacturing at the time. Yes. Then turned out we made a mistake in our reckoning because the politicians we thought were not sure the military was really going away for good. And so their bagmen generally moved into public life. Mm-hmm. And really began. Yes. As soon as they got in, resources prices went from single digits to triple digits.
Yes.
And part of this money and used it to erect barriers of entry into politics, the defining factor, and then shut out most of those who could really serve Nigeria, as servant leaders. But with the increase was a class of capture.
Yes.
State capture became the norm. 20-something years of it, and we can tell very clearly that Nigeria has not moved forward on it. See if we could reverse that. We came in a little late. Like I said, they had used money to erect all the barriers. My colleagues got me to run for president in 2007. That is, and I have the words of international observers that include the now late and former Prime Minister of Canada, who was there too. The elections, and so Nigerians began to lose in the process as a path to salvation. Now, the Afrobarometer, which was started by a group of American and African scholars to measure interest in could tell from the readings. Enthusiasm for democracy was in the way has progressed until a point where, there was a surge in interest. And we'll come to that in a minute. And some of the video that I saw you run of Mr. Peter Obi speaking at that about number of registrations and
Yes.
the voting that was expected to flow from it. So registrations had been on the wane. I gave a lecture that led to the founding of the year when we also disgusted with what was going on with the PDP.
Sorry, Professor. Forgive me, Professor. It's been suggested your sound is not stable. We wonder if you turn off your video, your camera, that might improve the reception. Yes. Okay. Proceed now.
I've done that now. So in 2012, Anis, in his annual lecture series, invited me to be the keynote speaker at political parties. And I expanded the thesis, how political parties make a difference and how they made through history. I went back to the 1911 book, Arthur Michel's, titled exactly that, political concept and idea of the iron law of oligarchy and all of that stuff. Very well regarded Nigerian politician of note, Dr. Paul Onongo, ran up to, I wish I could just shut the doors of this hall.
Mm-hmm.
And because sitting on the high table were opposition leaders, Buhari, who was then in opposition, Akonde, all of them were sitting there. And I could prevent you all from living here until they do what you've just talked about.
Right. Okay.
Beginning of what became the APC.
Yes.
As is clearly documented, the APC was written on my dining table. With me, Oshibajo, and Wale Edu being the primary. And we thought the APC would give us new life. But the process of trying to pull together votes led us back to a new PDP.
Mm-hmm.
So we began to think, how does Nigeria, and we began to think thought force, creating a new movement. It is this thought force that began to exploit the possibilities of the labor being a base to build a national structure.
Yes.
And so I began with the labor union leaders, the NLC president, TUC president, up to last year, and the adoption of the Labour Party. that the third force would run on. Then we created another body called the Big Tent. Many people who were outside of the political parties, who were in other political parties, who wanted transformation in Nigeria, we thought we should have the Big Tent provide a place, including former heads of state who were frustrated with the way Nigeria was running. I then convened the Big Tent to support movement for this new Nigeria. Now, when Peter Obi, who that way wasn't working, and came to Labour, very pleased. I was supposed to be the presidential candidate, and I said, yes, our values are generally aligned.
Yes.
Went to he came a few years after me. I think as my class was leaving, his class, Christ the King's College in Onitsha, and the University of Nigeria also, and called me several times to, and ask my opinion of things. So I thought, this is an appropriate person. If he'll have more energy and all of that. He has some tailwind going for him. I'll just step aside and give him all the support that he would take to actualize this dream for him. And this is how the journey began.
Can I ask you, Professor, at this point, just so I'm clear, and for the sake of the listeners, that you quite possibly would have been the presidential candidate, but you stood aside for Chief Peter Obi. Is that right?
That is correct. Because I also wanted to show an example. Part of the problem in Nigeria is that people are in their ego.
Yes.
And forget the big picture.
Yes.
It's about something, and I wanted to show that example.
Yes.
And in particular instance, and before people knew it, the message was going. Anything that has come through from all of this is that, and it's not a cliche, a new Nigeria really is possible. Now, the typical things that traditionally divide Nigerians have been ethnicity, religion, and the use of Nigeria threw all of that aside and focused on this message. I mean, I can tell you that who were spreading the message were, overwhelmed. And everywhere we went, the response was incredible. And so we thought, finally, Nigeria has come. The dream of our founding fathers is here. We say in Nigeria,
yes,
when you fight corruption, corruption fights back. 500 years ago, Niccolo Machiavelli wrote in The Prince to bring about the new order of things. Because those who profit from the old order will do everything from coming about.
That's right. That's right.
And those who could profit from the new order do not, because man is incredulous in his nature, not wanting to try new things. But this time, we found that those who could profit from the new order in Nigeria, and they came out, they gave their hearts, their minds, they're passionate. I mean, just last week, this very last week, I went to visit one of the victims of the Lagos. This lady who was brutalized because they tried to prevent who wanted to vote in favor of the Labour Party from coming forward. And she insisted she was going to go, and thugs beat her up so badly. So Mr. Rubi and I went to visit, and it was very quiet. There was nobody. We just quietly drove up to their home, got in. Because the car, the driveway wasn't, car had to drive out for us to then get in the car. And neighbors saw us, and the young people began to shout, we love you. Don't this mandate is for us. It was really an emotional moment for me, and it shows how much Nigeria had accomplished.
Yes.
Even with the everything to try and frustrate it.
Yes.
And this is really what the triumph.
So, Professor, if I may at this point just ask a quick question. So we're now at the point in which the election, a declared winner has been made by INEC. Okay. You are now going through the judicial system. Okay. You may not wish to answer this question, but I've got to ask it. Are you hopeful that it is possible to navigate the judicial system and realize your ambition for the INEC to acknowledge the many, many discrepancies in the electoral process? Are you hopeful that the judicial system will achieve that outcome?
Well, I cannot but be hopeful. I'm a person of, but I also know that the Nigerian people are determined.
Yes.
In the evening, and there were people on the flight who didn't know, residents in the UK who went to Nigeria just to cast their vote. So when we got off the plane, you know, you won't believe what happened at Heathrow. So I began to shout, hey, and then,
yes,
you know, so the Nigerian people is so strong.
Yes.
That an idea whose time has come.
Yes.
This is why I am encouraged. Okay. Beyond the fact that I'm a person of hope.
Okay. If I may, Ben, another question, Professor, and this is really to take our conversation forward. Because clearly the results suggested that Chief Peter Obi came third. I agree with him that there is evidence, significant evidence of voting irregularities. If you're not successful through the judicial system, what is plan B? What is your plan B?
Well, a struggle is not something that is a roadblock ahead of you. Roadblock, or you go around, circumnavigate that roadblock until we will remain engaged fully with the Nigeria until we realize this new Nigeria that is a Nigeria of inclusion, that is not a Nigeria. State capture has become now state hijack.
Mm-hmm.
The authority of the state, the resources of the state, to encourage a new fascism, because this is what has happened.
Yes.
People are probably, but I think I was perceptive enough to write a book in 2019 called, or that is titled, sorry, Why Not?
Indeed.
Citizenship.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Citizenship, mm-hmm. State capture, creeping fascism, and criminal hijack of politics in Nigeria. A very long subtitle is Why Not? Published by Bookcraft. Mm-hmm. And I go through this desire to dominate and control others. Mm-hmm. Tell you part of the evidence that we are going to be showing is that the INEC completely, not just was INEC captured, but that even was captured and supplied by some of the candidates who ran for president, and will prove to the world convincingly that this was state hijack. could descend through this process into a totalitarian of some criminal elements.
Yeah.
This is the fear Nigeria if we don't literally put our lives on the line to right things. What happened on the 25th of February?
That's understood. Another question, and before I'm asked this question, there are viewers via both Facebook and YouTube. You can put questions to me via the chat facility, and I may ask this question of Professor Pat Utomi, but you can put questions to us via the chat facility. Okay, and I say again, for those of you who receive the WhatsApp messages, you can also put questions to me via WhatsApp as well, whilst I conduct this interview. So, Professor, another question for you, which reoccurs. If Chief Peter Obi were the president today, how would he resolve the problem of the large number of young people who are unemployed? What would he do about this?
Oh, we actually have a program not just well advanced in its development, but implemented is literally underway that would put young people to work in a couple of major, beginning from the agricultural sector, where we talk about this new and moving into manufacturing parks all around the country, supported by massive programs, you know, because education has to support, and all of these will go in simultaneously. Just the network that we have built up already, facilities that could come into the country but have not done so in recent years, the quality of people in government, their commitment to service. Look, Forbes published an article, I think it was May 28th of 2019, Nigeria, Africa's money losing machine.
Yeah. Yes.
And that article basically pointed to the fact that institutions were preventing investment in Nigeria and preventing growth.
Yes.
Many South Africans in Nigeria have left. Many are leaving because of the nature of the corruption of the regime.
Yes.
I mean, it's almost sickening. All you need is a few real service-minded people committed to the growth of Nigeria and can reverse all of these things and make Nigeria, I mean, within a few short years, in the world, because all the ingredients are there.
Okay. Another question for you. We're very conscious here of the communities, many communities that make up Nigeria. Okay. I'm very conscious of the Hausa, the Fulani people of the northern part of Nigeria. Very conscious, of course, of the Yoruba people, and of course the Igbo people. I'm very, very conscious. Each of those communities, each of those tribal groups have different interests. Do you see a future of a united Nigeria, but would contain all of these peoples in a pluralistic state? Or is it inevitable that Nigeria will fracture? And I've seen some examples of what the future fracture of Nigeria might look like. Do you subscribe to those persons, to that agenda?
A great country that will bring the glory that the black man does not have to be states. My dream, my vision of Nigeria is that actually expands with a couple of other currently independent countries of their voting to be part of this bigger country.
Yes.
That is called Nigeria.
Yes. Yes.
I do firmly believe, who has grown up very pan-Nigerian, and I take liberty to tell you about how I was born in a town called Kaduna in northern Nigeria.
Yes.
I was baptized in the plateau of Nigeria. Part of my infant years, growing up, I started school in Kano, 60. Most of the rest of my primary education was in a northern town, which is in today's Zamfara State. Started secondary school in Onitsha in the year. The bulk of my secondary school education, I was in Ibadan, another college. They were all Catholic schools, all the schools I went through. Then I went back east to at the Nsukka before going abroad to go to graduate school in the United States. My experience is that we have a shared humanity. There is none the child of a lesser God. There's none that is designed differently. All the same things.
Yes.
Happiness and a few people manipulate these things to think is their interest, but they invariably do more damage to even themselves, even smart, self-interested people. Our challenge must be to reverse culture. I again, as an academic, has generally been in the area of institutions and economic performance. One of the things that's clear to me, and most historians, most people who write on economic history, generally have central to human progress the role of institutions. Historian Neil Ferguson, in his book Civilization, the West versus the Rest, or the 6 killer apps of Western power, focuses very, very much on in my own work. I like to emphasize institutions as well as culture progress. And the most important thing that leaders do is set a tone of values.
Yes, absolutely.
And society makes progress based on it. This is what in public life in Nigeria has been about. And this is why I found P2B exciting. And my hope is that when you get leaders like him so affected, that in a few years we won't be remembering these ethnic differences. We won't be remembering. Look, the northern part of Nigeria is by far the poorest part of Nigeria.
Yes.
It is in Nigeria, they will be the poorest country in the world. Anyway, Nigeria itself has now won this poverty capital of the world. But the truth of the matter, and I think a recent World Bank study has shown that some parts of Nigeria 40 years to catch up with other parts of Nigeria. That's not right. But people have done it to themselves or to their people. We need to liberate all of Nigeria across the board and bring prosperity. And to be able to do that, we've got to let people know where you come from. Yes, we still have racism around the world, realizing that it is stupid and only offers momentary to those who seek to use it.
So, Professor, I understand what you're saying, but the movement to scrap the current constitution, I gather from the evidence I have, that it is gaining support. That the fundamental problem with Nigeria is the constitution. Do you share that view?
There are challenges with the constitution, challenges that came out of what was originally a good intention on the part of the military to kind of centralize authority, but it was a very, very bad idea.
Indeed.
And has shown through the years that it has created less progress. Clearly, the intention of those who created the Constitution to have evenness from the center across negates the fact that the reality of Nigeria's surge at independence was driven by the principle of subsidiarity, that the decentralization of the nature of how governance took place led to growth spurts across the country and competition between regions of the country for who would most bring progress to their people. In fact, two Americans, Robert Melson and Howard Wolpe, wrote an interesting book back in my graduate school days in the 70s on that, in which they
recall the book.
They call the concept competitive communalism, competing ethnic nationality groups on who would most bring progress to their people. So I do think that a more decentralized approach to governing would lead to more progress.
And just to be clear, I'm familiar with that book and its implication of your words. I'm just want to just follow through. So, are you in favour of a constitutional review so it is refreshed and reflects the ambitions, aspirations of Nigerians, all Nigerians?
Absolutely.
Right. Okay. I think that's really what I want to get out of you. And if I may, I'm just conscious of our time, and I've not officially yet opened the line, and I see there are a number of questions waiting, and I'm going to take some of the questions that are written in a moment. But I just want to ask this last question of my own. In the states that Chief Peter Obi successfully won, okay. In those states, will we see the difference in terms of the economic and social prospects of their citizens compared to those states that it was unsuccessful? What will be the difference? Material, my listeners, my viewers will see, feel, and can touch. What will the difference will Chief Peter Obi's success in those states make to their lives?
Well, the truth of the matter is that the approach that the Peter Obi team has taken in drawing up the manifesto of the party is that it will touch the lives of every part of Nigeria, boost the quality of life for citizens across the country. Why is this so? Because it takes the approach of looking at the factor endowments of the country, and every part of the country is endowed, and that we could take the endowment of every part of the country and build global value chains off of those endowments. And you can be as successful if your endowment is sesame seed as if your endowment is hydrocarbons. That we would, from the middle of Nigeria, use both the educational system and the agriculture policy to ensure that we grow more sesame seed in Nigeria than anywhere else in the world, process it to the level of quality that will enable somebody who lives in Benue State actually become a multi-millionaire just working the sesame seed value chain, supplying to all the McDonald's hamburgers in Europe, or hamburger stores in Europe, and making sesame seed oil and all of that. Perhaps getting a lot more return than somebody who lives in Bayelsa State, where crude oil is being drilled. And so that approach will make people able to own their democracy, their economic prosperity, and want to defend it, rather than journey to serfdom that the current business of trying to extract maximum rent out of one endowment puts us.
I completely agree. I completely agree. And it has been my experience in politics that we politicians are often good at speaking, but we are judged not by our words, but by our deeds, our actions. And it is that which I am sure the Labour Party, forever all, it is that is what I recognise. Forward ever. I'm going to, if I may, Professor, I'm going to open the phone line, formally open the phone lines, and I'm now going to cordially invite those who are listening, those who are viewing us, to ask questions. I hope that's okay with you. Is that okay?
Yes, that's fine. Yes.
Brilliant. In that case, then I'll open the phone lines and the number to call. If you're in the UK, in Britain, it's 0208 133 5616. If you're overseas, of course, you remove the 0. It's +44 followed by the number. +44 208 133 5616. And what I'm going to do now, I'm going to take a few of the questions which have been written in both on the chat and on WhatsApp. And the first question, in fact, on WhatsApp, I'll take this one first of all. It's the role of women in the Nigerian Labour Party. How are women perceived by the Nigerian Labour Party? Do you see them as equal, or do you see them having a specific role? Oh, interesting question. But anyway, there you are.
Yeah.
Professor.
No, definitely see them as equal, but people have endowments. Even between men, there's difference in endowment. We don't have any kind of other room endowments cast on women. It's just about their own particular talents, and we have said that the the mantra that came out of the Beijing conference, that 35% of positions should be reserved for women, and we have not managed to go anywhere near that. In fact, it's been declining in Nigeria very sadly. We have done so much poorer than most African countries in terms of the number of women who are getting into positions, and yet we have such smart and talented women around the country. We have insisted that we will not even go with that mantra, that we're going to up the ante. If someone like me has his way, we'll have a 50-50 cabinet, 50% women.
Excellent.
I know that Peter Obi thinks very much in my direction. And this, especially the smarter young women. I mean, I chair the African Union's PAC, Private Sector Trade and Investment Committee. And when I go to all these meetings at the Afrexim Bank and AU and all of those, and I see these young women who are ministers from Rwanda, I really get very upset because most of them are not half as smart as my daughters. You know? So why should they be doing those kinds of jobs in Nigeria? Because we have greedy rent seekers who are men who don't recognize that we live in this so-called aristocracy of talent rather than, you know, abuse of power. So,
Professor, I'm going to quote you. Professor, I'm going to quote you henceforth. The aristocracy of talent. Well, I'm going to quote you
that's what the
henceforth.
book written by a British gentleman here and one of the FT journalists.
Very good. I've got another question here. I'll go to the chat. The question really focuses on the judiciary. What's your? I know you're going through and you're utilizing that route to gain justice. But if you were in power now, what changes would you want to see in the judiciary?
You know, it's a little sad about the reputation the Nigerian judiciary now has. It used to be one of our truly great areas of light.
Indeed.
But it would seem that the general affliction of culture ruins everything. Corruption is perceived to have become so widespread in the judiciary, and the whole issue of state capture has flowed into regulatory capture, and judiciary capture is a major part of it. And so we've got to build a truly independent judiciary. In my view, we're going to need to, well, not scrapping it, but we're going to have to start afresh, build a new culture of how we recruit judges, how we remunerate them, and how we try to insulate them. The prestige of being an upright judge should be so high that it will trump even any amount of money anybody could offer them. I think that part of the challenge of the collapse of culture in Nigeria is that there has been this glorification of the size of the bank account in public culture that's reached a point where people do not actually often recognize that it can be a diminishing thing. I actually have contempt for people who have a lot of money, who I can't I can't see what they did to make the money. Plenty of contempt. I celebrate more impact than the size of a bank account. And we've got to change culture generally in that direction and make the prestige that people enjoy be the signal. If judges stepped into a place and everybody stopped, it will be worth more than any bribe anybody can give them.
Thank you for that response. Another question has come to me via WhatsApp, and in fact, this person is one of my constituents here in London. And of course, the inevitable question is safety, personal safety. If Chief Peter Obi were in power, how would he improve safety for ordinary Nigerians?
You know, we often focus on catching the criminal as a way of solving the problem. We forget sometimes that many of the people who turn to crime are literally forced into it by the conditions in which they live.
Yes.
If we could bring prosperity to most people, if we could ensure that nobody gets away with doing wrong, if we could then improve policing as we are planning to, right now, again, part of what corruption has done in Nigeria is that it's created this myth that policing must be central, controlled from one location in Abuja, if it's not to be abused at the lower levels, which is absolute nonsense. The reason that people want concentration of policing powers is corruption, because the man in Abuja who controls the police can then have the resources to play with as he sees fit. Truth is that in the 1960s, it was said that local politicians used local authority police to intimidate their opponents.
Yeah.
But a former Inspector General of Police said to my hearing, and he was supposed to be making a joke of it, but it wasn't a joke at all.
Mm-hmm.
When we accused them of something wrong with the way the federal police was pushing the agenda of the federal government, he says, "Come on, my friend, you know that we are just uniform thugs of the party in power." IG of police said that in my presence. It's not,
Wow.
you know, but it was supposed to be a joke. But the message was very clear. So if you accuse local politicians of using the police, you can accuse the federal government of doing the same. So why don't you then concentrate on checks and balances? Now, I
Yes.
lived in a small town in America called Bloomington, Indiana, for nearly 5 years. The university has its own police force in Bloomington. In fact, while I was at IU, the university won the national championship in basketball, and the governor came to watch a basketball match, and his driver did not park properly. Campus police knew it was the governor's car, but they gave him a ticket.
Oh.
They
Okay.
gave the governor a ticket.
Yes.
And we leave the campus. The city of Bloomington, Indiana, has its own police force, and the county has its own police force, and then you have state troopers. So, what did the Americans do because of the tendency to abuse, but local politicians to abuse policing powers? Well, the laws are such that if it's a civil rights matter, automatically goes up to the FBI. That's the kind of law
Yes.
we need, not preventing multi-tier policing, which is very important. Policing is a very local function. It takes a local policeman to know who is from out of town, who is likely to be criminal in the neighborhood, from his family's history and all of that. So it makes policing much easier, much better.
Okay. I've heard your response. I have to say that within my political ward, I have thousands of Nigerians. This is the reoccurring question: safety, personal safety. But before I pursue on this, I just wonder if we've got a caller on the line. Good morning, caller. Can you hear me, Kalanji? The motivator. Yes. Good morning.
Of course, safety is very important. I believe that what is needed at this stage, right, is that Nigeria need a complete new leader. And I think Peter Obi was that one that was presented to the electorate. And he could actually bring a whole new spectrum, in how Nigeria is perceived, how Nigeria should be run. What the professor is saying, these things are needed, of course, right? And what I do believe that a new face is needed. And I think Peter Obi's presentation came out as the answer for Nigeria. And what I love about Peter Obi campaign, I see usually some of these things are tribal based, but Peter Obi seems to be accepted throughout Nigeria from the various different tribes. So he is an acceptable face that could actually bring forth a new dimension.
Okay.
Nigeria is so important.
Now, if I may, in that case, we've got, of course, Professor Pat Utomi, who's a very, very close associate of Chief Peter Obi. What question would you want to put to Professor Pat Utomi today? What question would you wish to put to him to take our conversation further?
Well, should this judicial system fail, what is the alternative? The concern is that the judicial system is is very unfair.
Okay, let's put that question back to him. It's okay, let's put that question back to him. I have put a version of that question to him, but you may not have heard that. But Professor, did you hear that question?
Yes, I did hear that. Yeah, my view is that, even if there are issues with the judiciary being sometimes perceived to be biased, Peter Obi himself has successfully won these kinds of cases before the same judiciary. And the hope of many people is that it happens again. There might be a few bad apples that give the judiciary such a bad name, but there are still good people in the judiciary. And the fact that the public is so on guard this time around will also put everybody on notice that they are being watched by the entire planet. And the kinds of sanctions that have started coming against, I hear that some of the judges who were involved in some election judgment were recently denied visas by the Americans. Such things eventually will shape behavior. This is what institutions are really about, setting boundaries to conduct. Because some people are created good by God and others created bad. No, they respond to the boundaries and consequence. The trouble with weak institutions is that consequence management is poor, and that then results in bad behavior.
Agreed. Kananji, I know you're based in Namibia. You may have an opinion from Namibia on the Nigerian election.
Well, we've been watching it very closely. As I said, right, Nigeria is so important to Africa, of the Sahara. If Nigeria can get it right, then the rest of Africa will follow suit.
For sure. Yes, that's so
sure. We really need to have a full investigation into this electoral anomaly, because the behavior of the election commission right now, it's very suspicious from what we are observing, and we are delighted that Peter is taking it to the court. We just hope that the court will be able to deliver in terms of justice to the people of Nigeria so that we can get it right.
Thank you.
It's very, very important that this election is seen to be fair. Not to be seen to be fair from the American or the West side, because they have a vested trust that Nigeria should be in turmoil. So we hope that the young people in particular, whose future is most important more than anything else, that they will stand up and ensure that there should be some sort of revision, or at least another election if the court fail right, so they do it all over again so that we can get it right.
Thank you. I'm going to pause there because I'm running out of my time, but thank you for that contribution. That was a very useful insight. I'm going to go back to the professor now, but thank you, Kananji. Please keep listening, okay? Keep listening. Thank you very much for that contribution. Thank you. Professor Pat Utomi, I've just realized the time is racing on. There are many questions that are piling up here. I'm going to ask you another quick question, and the last caller has alluded to it. And I note in the chat, a question that's been posed here is that what is the opinions of the United States administration? And the question asks, President Biden in particular is toward INEC, the INEC shenanigans, and they're asking the questions: have you spoken to the Americans? Have you sought their counsel in relation to Nigeria? Are they supportive of the actions by the Nigerian Labour Party, indeed Peter Obi?
Well, I was privileged to be part of a small team with Peter Obi that met the American Assistant Secretary of State for Africa, Ms. Fee, a couple of weeks before the election in Washington, as they hosted a number of the presidential candidates in Washington. And I said to her on that day that I hope that Americans are mindful of a perception that their main interest in elections in Africa, in Nigeria in particular, is peace, stability, and not justice. I said that to her and gave examples. Fortunately, she and I are both alumni of the same school. And I said to her, in 1999, my group, I was then deputy president of the U.S. Nigeria Economic Institute. Aliko Dangote was president. So essentially, Aliko and I hosted President Jimmy Carter, Colin Powell, and co to dinner after the elections. Elections went as what's the right word? As free and fair as you would expect. And when I asked President Carter what he thought of the elections, poor President Carter was struggling for words until a dear friend of mine who used to be U.S. ambassador to Nigeria, Princeton Lyman, kind of pulled me to the side and told me their experience with observing the elections. But by the next day, President Carter had been nicely coached to diplomatic usage, and he said, "Well, the elections seem to reflect the will of the Nigerian people." Now, and I said to Ms. Fee, this has gotten worse and worse and worse since that particular experience. In 2007 elections, of which I was a candidate for president, was far worse than 1999. And like I said, I mentioned earlier, I remember the words that Madeleine Albright used to describe the elections. And yet, it was okay. So long as you guys don't stop us by going to war, it's okay. It is not okay. The Americans and the British have to stop that. British and American diplomats were literally bullying Nigerian politicians during this election to prevent anybody from saying anything that seems to disturb the peace. It is not okay. In the United States and in Britain, people demonstrate against wrong and mass up.
That's right. Yes,
why is it wrong to do that in Africa? They must stop that. They must stop that.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. Professor, could you I've got one more question before we close this interview. I see we've got a caller on the line with number ending 2775. Good morning, caller. Good morning. Good morning. Keep speaking. You're very low at the moment. Can you speak right into your phone? Yes, you are some distance for some reason. Why are you that far? Anyway, keep talking. Keep talking. No, you are very, very low. Can I ask you to come through to us via the WhatsApp line? You know, you received my WhatsApp. Just phone through to me via WhatsApp. Don't worry, Professor. It will come through another line. For some reason, his phone is very low. We're almost out of time. In fact, I should say we are actually out of time. Actually, I've just been told by my producer we're actually out of time, so I can't take that call. Professor, what will be your closing message to Nigerians here in the diaspora? What will be your closing message?
The message really is that the diaspora has been actually quite instrumental to transformations in the 20th century in many countries, beginning with post-Meiji Restoration Japan and the role of the Japanese diaspora coming back from Europe. Not to talk of going to India rising, China rising, and all of that. Diasporans have an important obligation to ensure that a country like Nigeria emerges by using the power of their voice and their vote
Mhm.
where they live to affect
Yes.
the attention the world pays to that part of the world. I believe, for example, when I was on sabbatical leave in the mid-90s, I helped lead a global campaign for an international criminal court.
Professor, could you maybe just for a second, I'm going to disconnect now from the Galaxy FUE network. I know the next presenter is waiting in the wings. Now, Professor, continue.
Yeah. So, while I was on sabbatical living in Boston, spending a year at the Harvard Business School writing a book, I tried to spend a good part of my time campaigning with the media to have an international criminal court to prevent leaders that literally visit genocide of people from getting away with it because of weak institutions within their own countries. At that time, I canvassed two courts, this International Criminal Court on matters like genocide and one on economic justice. Well, I was told by a very famous American newspaper that I visited in January of 1997 with this case that I was too idealistic, it would not happen. Well, not more than 2 years later, the Rome Treaty passed and we have today's International Criminal Court. I'm going to urge diaspora to run a massive campaign for an international criminal court that can deal with people who perpetuate elections violence, who intimidate voters, and create conditions which invariably wars and genocide.
Yes.
Several governors in Nigeria, several leaders of Nigeria's National Assembly who carried out such roles during these elections, I think should be put on trial in The Hague. And this is a major campaign we should all run. Let's get some sanity going.
Thank you.
So,
well, that was quite a statement, and it is possible, Professor, if it is all right with you, that we should do a part 2. I can tell by the number of questions that I have outstanding here, there's a thirst to interact with yourself. There's a real desire to interact with you. I can tell you are a natural teacher, and in my time in public life, I've expressed admiration for teachers. If teachers around the world, wouldn't we all
to me
be
that
in a
our
much
reward
better
was
place?
left for heaven. Teachers' reward in heaven.
I could listen to you all day and night. I could listen to you all day and night. But I'm compelled by circumstances to keep to my time. Okay? And you've given us a flavour of the strength that is within the Nigerian Labour Party. Forward ever, absolutely.
Yes.
Forward ever. And we look forward to speaking to you, and maybe you could arrange for us to speak with Chief Peter Obi in the not too distant future. We really want to get underneath the hub of this. We want to understand how the party functions, its aspirations for the country, and its ability to deliver that aspiration. Okay? And I know that many of my viewers and listeners are noting where the party was successful and what, as a result of that success, what change it will make in those people's lives, both men, women, children, and the elderly. What difference a party will make in their lives, because the party is in control. And that's the way I've found that often ordinary electors judge their politicians, the impact we have on their lives.
Yes.
Thank you, Professor Pat Utomi.
You're welcome.
Thank you for your contribution today. It has been most insightful. I need to study further your writing, because evidently there are more than I realize. Okay, it'll be a pleasure. But These doors are open to you at any time. Feel free to make contact with us. We'll give you a platform at any time.
Thank you.
It is my pleasure. Good day to you. Good day to you. And extend our goodwill and best wishes to Chief Peter Obi.
Will do.
Thank you. Thank you. Goodbye. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Wonderful. Wonderful. That was a truly powerful interview with an extremely learned African man. An example of the many, many learned African men and, of course, women. And you heard what he said. If he were the leader, and he's recommending to the future Labour Party controlled Nigeria that half of the cabinet would be women. And I'm proud to say here in my area of London, of Southwark, which is where we're based, which has the highest concentration of Nigerians in Britain. One of our principles as a local Labour Party, indeed, same name, is that half of those in our cabinet shall be women. Indeed, half of those in leadership across the party shall be women. Okay. And we have specific policies to ensure equalities of the agendas. So we are aligned. We are totally aligned. And I can unreservedly give my support to the Nigerian Labour Party. Forward ever. Forward ever. Because there's always hope. With determination, your vision, your aspirations are realizable. Ashun, bless Ashun. I want you all to leave with this show better informed. You are now empowered to make the changes that are necessary, both for your personal life, social life, and for the nation of Nigeria. Indeed, for the whole of Africa, as my previous caller said, for the whole of Africa. So these are not idle wishes. These are proactive desires, and we're proactively going to implement them. We don't wait for other people to do it for us. We'll do it for ourselves. We will do it for ourselves. Nigerians united will do it for ourselves, themselves. There we are. I think that's enough. Remember, let's translate these words into action. Of course, success is ours for the taking. Until the next strong, please, if you haven't subscribed to our YouTube or Facebook channels, please do so. Give us the affirmation, the thumbs up. You remember that graphics I put it up earlier on? There you are. I say it's on screen. The thumbs up. Press that. The YouTube algorithm likes that. Okay. Give us the like. Subscribe to our channel. Okay. Follow us on Facebook or indeed in Mixcloud. Okay. And together we'll share these messages of personal and community empowerment. So, until the next strong, I remain the motivator. Thank you.